questions, like listening in, and even if it was like data that like I helped like generate, I'd still be like, wow, who put that together? That looks amazing.
You're so modest, Stephanie.
I wish I could be like, I think I would fluctuate between like thinking like I am a god, not really, but like being like, wow, like I look awesome, I'm doing awesome, I got a 401k, like.
Yeah, that's better than me.
And then like I'm like, oh, I'm just like a regular idiot, just trying to figure it out.
Do you think this is gonna be the biggest thing you'll ever do in your life?
It's kind of sad to think of it like that, but I can't imagine anything else being as impactful. Hopefully, it doesn't end here.
So it's not all downhill from here.
It might be. Maybe I have a quarter life crisis. I just let myself go. I don't know, but I hope not. I'm hopeful about it.
She told me she knows she isn't some super genius. A lot of scientists could have done what she did. She just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Norville is the production fellow at our show. Act 2, Fly Like a Butterfly. So we turn next to another 25-year-old who's already achieved some things in her life. In fact, achieved at a level that most of us never get to even when we're older. Her name is Claressa Shields, and she has won 2 Olympic gold medals in women's boxing. And in addition to that, all kinds of other championship titles and belts and accolades. But this year at 25, her big accomplishment was different. With boxing shut down for COVID, she bought a house. She bought a house on the outskirts of her hometown, Flint, Michigan. Sujay Johnson has known Claressa for almost a decade. She made a radio story about Claressa with the documentary series Radio Diaries, and then produced a film about her called T-Rex, Her Fight for Gold. She got in touch again with Claressa to ask about this latest achievement.
The idea of Claressa owning a house is wild to me, because I've known her since she was 16. I met her at a boxing tournament in 2011. I was photographing and interviewing the women who were competing to be on the first ever Olympic team for women's boxing. It was Claressa's first adult tournament, and she made heads turn. She was faster and stronger than any other boxer. But what really caught my attention was this determined look in her eyes. That and the way she thumped her chest when she won, like she was already the greatest. Claressa's one of my favorite people. It's been a privilege to have a front row seat on her life all these years, including this new chapter. Ever since she was 16, she told me she wanted 2 things. A gold medal, she got her first one a year later, and a house, a safe place for her and her family.
All right.
She gave me a little tour of it on FaceTime.
So here we are at my house. This is my fireplace here. On top of my fireplace, I have, of course, my TV. Then I have the 2020 Barbie doll of the year. That's my smoke detector. I haven't changed the batteries.
It's nice. Not massive, but big. Brick and gray vinyl siding with generous windows. A 2-car garage. It's got 3 bedrooms. A jacuzzi in the master bathroom, which was a big selling point. She says when she first saw the living room, she thought she'd need 3 or 4 couches to fill the space. There's also a pool in the back that she says can fit about 20 people. And a yard. In the dining room, a long, welcoming table set for 8. And at the head of it, a hint of her royalty.
The queen chair is down there. That's my chair. All the other chairs don't even have the studded diamonds. That one does.
You have a chair studded with real diamonds?
Why not, Sue?
Because you have a throne. I don't know, just
It's only 2 chairs. It's only 2 chairs, so it didn't cost that much. And then we come over here where I have my trophy case, which I only got 1 more drawer to fill. Turning 25, the most exciting thing that I've done is buy my house. I'm like a big person with numbers, so 25, 2 plus 5 is 7, and 7 is my favorite number. So I knew that something special would happen at 25 in my life, but I just didn't see me buying a house. It all just kind of just happened. I just feel like it's the opposite of what I grew up in.
Claressa never had a solid home for very long growing up. She lived at something like a dozen address services before she was 17. Had to deal with all kinds of abuse and deprivation. And it started early. She was moved out of her mom's place when she was 5.
And I lived with my grandmother till the age of 9. And all this time I spent away from my younger brothers and my sisters. Also too, moving back in, my mom abusing alcohol. And moved out from with my mom and moved in with my coach Jason. That was my decision.
Jason and his wife Mickey. Clarissa calls her Mama Mickey. That was when she was 17, the first time she had her own bed, her own room. She was there a little more than a year, then started living on her own. Lived in Colorado for a couple years, and Florida for a couple more. Always rented. So now, having an entire house of her own, it's a big deal.
And I have to say, like, I've had some great moments in my life as I am a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and 9-time world champion and 3-division world champion, faster than any other male boxer in history. But, any other boxer in history, period. But, when I got the keys to my house, it was this overwhelming feeling of like joy and internal happiness of knowing that I'll never be homeless ever again in my life. Like, I'll never have to worry about where I'm going to live. You know, my family, if they need somewhere to come stay, if I can't find somewhere to stay, I always have an extra room for them. And it just gave me like this whole sense of just like, you're really grown now. I have a therapist now just to help me deal with the stress of just not being able to fight.
All of her fights were canceled this year because of coronavirus. She says it's been really hard on her.
Because I'm used to fighting all the time and being on TV and always being on the go. And it's like having to deal with all the trolls on Instagram and Twitter and just deal with life in general and how to express my emotions, not with anger, and not with tears, and not sinking into depression. Depression has got too hard to deal with by myself. So that's 25-year-old decisions, putting yourself in therapy. I couldn't imagine being 17 owning a house. Like, it just wouldn't work out. Like, I would throw parties all the time.
To paraphrase Corinthians, when Clarissa was a kid, she had the dreams of a kid. She told me when she was 16 that she wanted to have 10 children by the age of 26, not factoring in the difficult math of that, or how 10 pregnancies might affect her boxing career. She laughs about that now, but the spirit of that dream has stayed with her, surrounding herself with family, being a protector. And slowly, the details became more realistic. She thought winning the gold medals would lead to a bunch of endorsement deals, and that she could buy a house not just for herself, but for her mom, preferably somewhere other than Flint, which can be pretty rough. But the endorsements didn't materialize, so she made the transition from the amateurs to the pros, started earning a steady living as a boxer. And she thought she could at least convince her family to move away with her, which is why it was surprising to me that she wound up with a house in Flint.
I remember the goal that you had was to get out of Flint.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the reasons why you wanted to get the gold medal, so that you and your family could get out of Flint and you wouldn't have to live there.
I just know I wanted a better life for myself. You know, I wanted to be more financially stable. I wanted to have, food, a bed. So I don't really think it was like not being in Flint. I think it's more of like, I just don't want to be poor.
And what about like getting your family out? You used to talk a lot about getting your family out of Flint to keep them safe.
Over time, I've also tried that. Like when I moved to Florida, my younger brother moved with me, but my younger sister, my mother, wouldn't come. He was like, all right, so now I'm just in Florida with none of my family except my little brother. Can y'all be quiet a little bit?
While we were talking, 4 of Clarissa's nieces were huddled together on the big gray sectional sofa in the living room. Her nieces and nephews are over a lot these days, playing video games, jumping in the pool. She's strict with them sometimes when the house gets messy. She makes her nephew, Fat Daddy, do the vacuuming. But she likes having them all there. And there aren't 10 of them. There are 11. She's filled her house with a bevy of kids like she wanted. just not in the way she expected. Which is true generally for her at the moment. The life she has now, with a house in Flint, it's not what she imagined, but it fits all her needs and desires. It's what boxers do. They respond to what's thrown at them, and they adjust. But she says this isn't the end. She still has big dreams. In fact, she just announced that she signed a multi-year deal to be a mixed martial arts fighter, where the money is better for women. She wants to buy a second house, a mansion in Vegas.
Sue J. Johnson, she's a writer and filmmaker. Her film T-Rex, about Clarissa's journey to the Olympics, you can find at pbs.org. Coming up, a woman at 25 who decides after years of saying no to her parents about something, tries their way for once. That's in a minute from Chicago Public Radio, One Hour Program. This American Life, Myra Glass. Today's program, 25. To commemorate our 25th year on the air, we have stories today about people, human beings, who were created the same year as our program. We have stories of 25-year-olds. And I just want to note, before we go to the next story, that the one other thing that we've done to mark our 25th year is that we set up a web page with a list of favorite episodes from over the years. It has the very easy to remember address, thisamericanlife.org/25 years. And if you go there, you'll see a mix of like audience favorites, but also like some deep cuts I bet you have never heard, or you probably don't remember. If you did hear, my personal suggestion among those, okay, is a show called I Am from the Private Sector and I'm Here to Help, where Nancy Updike takes you into this world of, like, not the American military, but the private contractors who worked alongside the military in Baghdad in 2004. And the episode is like part, I don't know, like The Office or Veep, and part, you know, like a war. There are lots of other shows in addition to that one ready for your holiday listening while you're cooking or shopping online or whatever. Anyway, thisamericanlife.org/25 years. And with that, we have arrived at Act 3 of our show, Act 3, The Rest of His Life. So some of us here at the radio show read this essay back in June that really got to us, that Mitchell S. Jackson wrote about a 25-year-old. The essay is about Ahmaud Arbery, who was 25 when he was pursued by 3 white men in Georgia and shot to death while out for a run. The essay was published in Runner's World magazine, and as you'll hear, it leans into the running parts of things just a little bit, but it's also so much more than that. Mitchell talked to Ahmaud's closest friends and his family members to create a portrait of Ahmaud Arbery that is really unlike anything else we have seen about him. We asked Mitchell to adapt a version of his essay for our program today. Here he is.
Ahmaud Arbery, by all accounts, loved to run, but he wasn't, by his own account, a runner. There's no evidence of Ahmaud training for 10Ks or full or half marathons or obsessing over his miles or PR times, but he loved it. Ahmaud would run in a white t-shirt and khaki shorts. He'd run shirtless in basketball shorts. He'd run in a tank top and hoop shoes. As his day one homeboy Keem sums it, he could run in anything. When Keem was home from college, he and Ahmaud would cruise to one end of the longest spanning bridge in all of Georgia. They'd do some warm-up stretching and jump back and forth across it, a distance of just under 3 miles. The pair would keep a steady pace, but sometimes, Keem says, Ahmaud would push him. On February 23rd of this year, Ahmaud went out for a run. The location of this run was a subdivision in Glenn County called Satilla Shores. It's a neighborhood of waterfront properties, of upper and middle class families, of retired folk and fresh transplants. No one can know for sure the route he took before reaching Satilla Shores, but he'd set off from his home. So that means there's a good chance that on his run, he passed homes flying a Confederate flag or the Don't Tread on Me Gadsden flag, and hella homes warning, no trespassing. On February 23rd, when Ahmaud went jogging, he was dressed in light-colored low-top Nikes, a white t-shirt, and khaki cargo shorts. Ahmaud, who was 25 years old, jogged alone. Ahmaud's family home in Brunswick, the one where he lived at the time he was killed, is a mere 2 miles from Satilla Shores. But in meaningful ways, it's almost another country. Matter of fact, the poverty rate of what young black residents call the WIC is a staggering 38%. The Wick is where Ahmad Marquez Arbery was born on May 8, 1994. He was the third beloved child of Wanda Cooper Jones and Marcus Arbery Sr. Their working class family included his older brother Marcus Buck Jr. and sister Jasmine. The family called Ahmad Kez, the shortened version of his middle name, while his friends called him Maude. Maude had a slight gap in his front teeth and dark skin forever burnished by hours outside. When Maude was in middle school, the family moved to a small white house on Boykin Ridge Drive, where Maude continued to share a room with his brother. Per his big bro Buck, Maude was the slob. In high school, Maude landed a gig at the local McDonald's. He did it to keep some scratch in his pocket, but also to help his mother, who often worked 2 jobs. Some days, Maude's homeboy Keen would swoop him from work and wheel them to the Golden Isles YMCA. They would hoop or work out for 6 or 7 hours straight before bopping over to the Glen Place Mall for the fries and wing combo at American Deli and heading right back for hoop hours more of playing and training. Back then, Maude favored slim jeans, bright-colored polos and rugbies, and kept his hair shorn low with the crispiest of edge-ups. Maude played football from the Pee Wee League through high school and ended up an undersized varsity linebacker. But he was also the team captain who led his Brunswick High School Pirates in pregame chants. Though never caught Diesel strong, Maude owned a super-hearted fearlessness on the field and often astonished his coaches with big hits. In his senior year, made the storied Florida-Georgia War of the Border All-Star Game. Not to mention, this was South Georgia football, so Maude competed in a league that produced pros and played before some of the biggest high school football crowds in the country. Before he was an all-star though, Maude tore his ACL and meniscus in a JV game. While a less dedicated player might have given up, he committed to a laborious rehab. His junior year, he wore a leg brace, a hindrance that diminished his chance of playing in college. Like Maude, I was a passionate high school athlete. My sport was hoop. Like Maude, no major college program offered me a scholarship. Both Maude and me attended small schools in our home state. Maude quit after a year and returned to Brunswick and his mother's home. I too quit my first community college, but unlike Maude, there was no need to return home to my mother's cramped apartment, as I was living there all the while. The year after he graduated, Maude was arrested for carrying a gun and sentenced to 5 years of probation, which he violated by shoplifting. A few years after I graduated high school, I was arrested with drugs and a gun and sentenced to 16 months in an Oregon State prison. At 25, Maude was a runner who had every reason to believe his life had more miles ahead of it than behind it. At 25, I enrolled in the first of 2 graduate writing programs. Today, Maude, dear God, why, is dead, and I, by grace, am a writer professor hurtling toward middle age. At 1:04 p.m. on February 23rd, the security camera shows 25-year-old Ahmad Arbery wandering up a sunny patch of narrow road and stopping on the lawn of a sand-colored under-construction bungalow addressed 220 Satilla Drive. Maybe he wondered what the skeleton of beams and sheetrock and piping and wire would look like when it was finished. Maybe he imagined a family who could afford to live in a place so close to the
podcast and
water.
get my mask. Just a sec.
What we know for sure is that while inside, Maude touched nothing.
Okay.
Your backup battery's making some noises.
What'd you say? Oh,
Your
yeah.
backup
it's,
battery's making some noises.
Hold on, it's that way.
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
just looking
okay.
for a mask.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Here.
Okay.
Oh, that's the one that's gonna go to. Oh, there's one. Okay, come on in.
Alright.
Yeah, so right now I have it off.
Okay.
And this is like the second or third time it happened where
Okay.
I'll come in the morning and it's just screaming.
Okay.
And no matter what I do, it won't stop. So then I turn it off, I turn it back on, it starts again.
Okay.
And so I don't even know how to work the dang thing, so you can
Not a
give me a
problem.
little lesson on it before you leave, but that's it, and it's off now.
So totally powered off?
I just use the off button.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, is it a constant noise? Is it a chirp chirp?
It's a constant.
Constant.
noise. Yeah, here, let's see if it'll do it.
Okay.
Is this the power button? I can't even see it because I don't have my glasses on. That's it.
Okay.
All right, and I'm gonna be sitting here painting while you work, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, what's your name again?
Jeremy,
Jeremy
just
Alpino.
nice to meet you.
You too.